Uh, I assume
On
I'm on
now.
now.
Uh,
My
my
name is John Kuehn. I'm the Kuehn part of Spencer and Kuehn. Uh, Even though it's spelled Kuehn, uh, from where I'm from, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, originally, and that name is common
and pronounced the same way, but everywhere else I go in the United States, I answer to whatever, so it's not a big deal. Pronounce it, that's it. Anyway, I'm here today to talk about the history of the wedding band and the engagement ring, uh, and the history in America. Uh, and it's an interesting history, but one of the reasons I wanted to do this today is it really is going through a change like it never has before, an evolution, let's say. But I'll get to that. First, the history, how it started. Wedding rings were first. Engagement rings did not come until later. But wedding rings, go as far back as the Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks, 2,000 years ago or whatever. And they gave, the man would give something to the woman as a symbol or a token. They used leather, plants, braided hemp. And that was an interesting thing, too, to get off the subject a little bit. The use of amulets or jewelry, how long ago did early man actually wear jewelry, early man or woman? Uh, anyway, they found a bone with a hole in it next to a Neanderthal man, of course, the bones, and meaning it was hand drilled. So they wore it or did something with it that needed a hole in it. But the tradition of exchanging rings came about in Europe, and it was primarily by the Catholic Church. There was nothing biblical about a ring, but the Catholic Church played a significant role in promoting the use of wedding rings as a symbol of marriage. I guess marriage became more important due to the Roman Catholic Church also. Up until that point, I'm not sure if there was marriage. That's another thing to look into history. The Puritans, when it came to the colonial period in America, so there was, in some cases, an exchange of rings in early colonial America. But a lot of that was nullified by the Puritans, who were against having anything luxurious or valuable. And so they didn't want wedding rings. They were frowned upon. But we owe it all, us in the jewelry business, we owe a lot to Queen Victoria. As crazy as she was, she had a totally huge influence on the world. And she had an engagement ring. And I think she had a wedding ring too. And you could go into a whole history of what she did with when her husband died and all that stuff, and the influence she had on jewelry. The influence she had in the jewelry was huge, still today. But anyway, she really started off engagement rings. Then, this other thing, the practice of the symbolism of it, the circle. What was the symbolism? The circle, meaning commitment and all that. It was started back in her early days. In terms of, I know all this stuff, but I had to have it organized, and I used ChatGPT to say, make this down to one paragraph outline, simple, and bing. In about a second and a half, I had the whole thing. I could really read this, but it won't make sense. But ChatGPT knows more than I do about the history. So anyway, engagement rings. Let's see what happened with them. In the early 1800s was the first time they were beginning to be popular in the United States, in America. Because, well, in the beginning, when diamonds came out, let me get to that in a minute. So the engagement ring was popularized by Queen Victoria, and it emerged in the late 1800s and early 1900s. The late 19th century, trying to get the date straight, in 1886, Tiffany. Now we're going to give Tiffany credit for the engagement ring. They invented what's called the Tiffany solitaire engagement ring, which is simply a prongs on a ring, and then here's a diamond. Tiffany invented that concept, and they still own that patent. And they will come after you, as they did to Costco, if you say, I have a Tiffany ring for sale, and instead of having a ring with 4 prongs and a diamond in it. So anyway, they invented it, and they deserve full credit for that. So Tiffany's, a private company, had a huge influence on wedding practices today with De Beers. And De Beers had a huge effect on diamonds. But the reason diamonds never came into it is because diamonds couldn't be cut in years past. They had no technology for it. They could cut. First of all, let me explain cutting. When I say cutting a diamond, you didn't cut a diamond. You originally they had a solid diamond, and it looked like this. In the ground, it came out in an octahedron, 8-sided crystal. Now, there's all sorts of different shapes, so this is the most common one. And then they would lay it on a table. I'm simplifying this, and they would take a metal piece of metal like this with some kind of handle on it and a sharp bottom edge, and they would lean that right here on the diamond and then hit it with a hammer or some kind of thing, and bam, it would either smash the diamond into a million pieces or cut it a chop off that section. Excuse me. So that's how they used to cut diamonds in those days, with a cleaver. And it was very poorly cut. They were not scientifically cut. They sparkled very little. And right now they're much better. Excuse me again. I got a tickle. Anyway, back to where I was. Where was I? Oh, so anyway, now they're starting to cut diamonds. After this point, they're cutting diamonds with a... they found out they couldn't cut diamonds in the past because they didn't realize they had to use diamond dust to polish them. I have allergies, and certain smells get me to coughing, and I usually need to blow my nose and get a drink of water, but I'm old, so what the heck. Anyway, where was I? Oh, chopping diamonds. Now they don't do that anymore because obviously a diamond could sometimes shatter because it had cleavage planes, which means it's like a book. If you have a book and the book is closed and you hit it on the cover of the book, you'll be fine. But if you hit it where the pages are, then it can shatter and mess up everything. And so they didn't know when they looked at a diamond which it was going to be. So it was a lot of guessing. Anyway, so now they cut diamonds much more scientifically, and they use computers, but what they do is they grind them. So think about a record playing, and it has diamond dust in it, and then you just put the diamond at the end of a stick. You put a diamond on the end of a stick, and then it's turning. The record is turning, and you lean it here, you lean it there, you lean it there, lean it there, and it'll grind over a period of time, little facets in it. One day I'll do a specific one with actually good optical images, and you'll see how that works. But now back to the engagement ring. So they started in the early 1900s to get serious about it. And then De Beers, again, with the most genius and profitable marketing invention on the history of the planet, managed to convert nothing into a 100 billion dollar business by this one slogan of 4 words: a diamond is forever. And that struck a nerve with the public, because a diamond is forever, and so is our relationship, so is our commitment. Commitment, that means that with it, when I give you this diamond, I'm committing to you forever. And it really sunk in. And it was huge from the 1930s on. And then the wars came along, and economic prosperity, actually pre-World War II, before the end of World War II, people didn't, I don't know if they were less prosperous. They were rich people, they were poor people. The middle class wasn't as big. I'd have to go look at the statistics there anyway. But diamond engagement rings weren't that big. They existed, but it wasn't a big deal to have a bigger diamond. In fact, most of the antique diamonds I see are small, quarter carat on the average, whereas now the diamonds around are more of about a carat. Anyway, so in the early days, the early World War I, World War II, you get an engagement ring as that symbol, but it wasn't. Bigger is better didn't start until right after World War II. So right after World War II in the 1950s, which was, by the way, the most prosperous time in the history of the planet. It has never been more prosperous than either before or after. We were more prosperous economically then than we are now in the 1950s. And I could go into that being an economist again, but an example I always like to tell everybody is if you saw Back to the Future and the 4 guys in the gas station, or 5 that came out, when your car pulled into a gas station back in those days, for you younger people, it was really strange, but 4 or 5 men would come out, and only men, and one of them would check the tires, one of them would check the oil, one of them would wash the windows, and one of them would pump the gas. And each of these guys, every gas station you see, now you pump your own. But in those days, it'd be 4 or 5 people working in every gas station, and nobody pumped their own gas. You wouldn't touch a pump, it would blow up. So, but my point is, if I can get back to my point is, every one of those 4 or 5 guys could support a family of 4 on whatever he was making. And that has not happened again. That went away. It went away starting with the Great Society of Lyndon Johnson. And I'm not saying it shouldn't have been or should have been, but that's when that prosperity went away, when government changed. Anyway, back to engagement rings. So bigger was better. And then it grew and grew into a whole series of time where it was prestige to have the biggest diamond and the best diamond. And everything was bigger and better. And things are changing now in terms of what's going on, is because in history, everybody had to have the single diamond with a wedding band. And it had to be a diamond, and everybody was good with that. And there were different shapes of diamonds. And again, something else very interesting is that I've learned over the years, they've done psychological studies. And I always get a kick out of this because they correlated they took, a study was done with 2,000 or 3,000 women, I believe. And I'm not sure of the year, at least 40 years ago. And they first determined their personality profile. Just a psychologist can do this by asking a series of questions to find out what personality you were. And they correlated that personality profile with the shaped diamond they chose. So they did the study on finding out what 2,000 or 3,000 women would choose as a shape of a diamond. And those shapes could be, bear with me here, different shapes of diamonds that they used. The first is the round brilliant. It's the It's the circle with the facets on it and that we've seen everywhere. There's a great drawing of that, boy. I ought to become an artist. Anyway, the round cut was, and the most common. And they correlated, they found out which personality profile chose that. And then there was the marquee, which was shaped like a boat. And then that had your facets. And there was an oval and a pear. And then finally, the emerald cut, which is basically an octagon. Now, when they first did the study, they didn't have the square princess cut. But due to the way it's cut, very similar to the round, except it has a square outline. But in my experience in talking to many, many, many couples getting engagement rings, the people who chose the round and the princess were the same personality. Anyway, to get to the gist of this is they found that the people who chose the round or the square diamond, the princess, were, and these don't exist anymore, they were homemakers, simple domestic taste, easy to get along with, dependable, the longest marriage rate, the woman who would stay home and raise kids. And does that exist anymore? Anyway, there are a few, very few. But the people who are then conservative fit into this category. And I don't mean conservative politically, I mean conservative the lifestyle. So conservative. And they have, and they're the round. The opposite of this is the marquee, the boat shape. The personality of the girls that chose this shape had the worst marriage rate. They were flighty, on the go, always trying new physical and intellectual relationships. And if a couple came in here, 18 years old, and getting a marquee diamond, I would say to myself, 6 months to 2 years maximum. And I was right. In fact, in those days, pawn shops had nothing but marquees in there, because when people wanted to sell their diamonds, the pawn shops, they had more marquees than anything. So anyway, the pear and the oval were in between personality-wise. So the girls that liked the pear and the oval were in between the marquee and the round. They weren't as conservative, but they weren't totally off the wall. And there are a few exceptions to all of these. These are generalities. But the one I love the most is when I get somebody in here that I find out is an engineer, if the guy picks out the diamond, then it's his personality. So there's no difference, female versus male. If the guy picks out the shape without input from the girl, and he picks out the round, the marquee, the oval, he's in the same personality thing that I'm discussing. And sometimes we get a girl that should be a round diamond whose husband is a marquee, and that happens. But anything. But the emerald cut is the most interesting to me, because this girl is an engineer, an accountant, some occupation that is very detailed and organized. I asked them the question, I ask a girl when I'm trying to figure out what shape they're going to like, if you have a record of every check you've ever written, ever. And number one, if she answers that yes, and then I say, can I eat off your bathroom floor? And if she says yes to that, then I know she's going to want an emerald cut. And what's really strange is I am right 99% of the time. And sometimes she said, I've never noticed an emerald cut, but now I'd really like one. But anyway, I always get a kick out of that, because if I find somebody like that, I immediately show them the emerald cut. And then I find women that have been wearing a round or a different shape for years, and I find out that that's their personality, and show them an emerald cut, they immediately need something with it as an emerald cut because they like that. Now, okay, that's the psychology of of these 40 years ago. Today, I don't want to say all bets are off, but a lot of them are. We are in a different world now, and we're in a flux. We're changing, and I don't know where it's going. The changing is we sell here a large number of non-traditional engagement rings. We make, as you know, we make everything we sell. We make all these new mountings. And we have girls that come in here and they want not a diamond, they might want a ruby, they might want an emerald, but that's happened before. But now we have diamonds that are rose cut, flat on the bottom, rounded on the top. We have salt and pepper diamonds that instead of being white and sparkly, they have little black dots in them. And they love this different things. And then we don't always make the standard engagement ring, which has one diamond and a plain band. And sometimes we're going to make a band with roots and vegetables and leaves and vines and stick a diamond here and a ruby there. Anything that people want to be different. But I think, and the same goes in wedding bands. And that's changing too. So I don't know where it's going because the commitment is not the same. To go back in history, I have a lot of history behind me. When I was a kid, if a woman was divorced in the 1950s or earlier, she was an outcast in society. I mean, it was the man's fault, but she got the blame. And women were not, let me say, mistreated, whatever. Women had a rotten deal all throughout history until just recently, where they are empowered and they are not told that their whole job in life is to find a man and have a relationship and all this stuff. But they're also told, they're also not as oriented as they were in my day to have kids. And that bothers me because population decline is a very frightening situation. And it should be for the young kids today that don't want to have kids, is that when they become old, there's going to be no kids around to take care of them. And in the economy, no young people and all retired old people, the population will go very down very quickly. It's starting in some countries. And I think here, I don't know if we're negative yet with kids having children, but I think Japan is. And be watchful of the history now to see, because we're changing society. They're doing it from, needed to be changed. I mean, when it was back in the days of World War II, pre that, women were possessions. It's a different world now, and rightly so, but it's going, I don't know where the extreme is going. And if we're going to have marriages, if we're going to have the old-fashioned marriage, is that going away? Is it going to, I don't know. The relationship is totally different now than it was when a woman doesn't need a man because she makes a living. The divorce rate for women who make more than the man in a relationship is huge now. It doesn't last long at all. Commitment doesn't mean what it used to mean. So I'm not judging what's going on. I'm just saying, and I don't know there's no way to control this. It's an evolution process. And I don't think we could have governments say we can do this or that. Well, there are some governments that say that. Hopefully we never will. But the point is, where are we going? And usually when things get bad, we find ways to fix them. So let's see about that. Let's see if we can find ways to fix that. Although I don't know if we have a Department of Marriage and Relationships in any government yet to say, hey, we got to do more of this or that. Anyway, I don't know any answers, but it's something that could be scary results and should be looked at. And but how do you change society? Anyway, I'm getting too philosophical, and I think I covered some of the generalities of the history of engagement rings and wedding rings. And I don't know where they're going to go. Oh, I collect certain antiques. I love old antique jewelry. And there's an antique that I've seen pictures of, and I've never been able to find one, but I'd like to collect one. But what's very interesting is that in the 1700s, women used to wear a ring that I would like to find. And if you see one, if you know of one, it's very old, don't get rid of it. It's probably it's not valuable metal-wise, but historically it's very interesting and valuable. Women used to wear a ring with a skull on it in the 1700s if you were a widow. If you were a widow in the 1700s or earlier, it was a miserable existence because did you find a man to get married when you had other women to choose from? If you had kids and your husband died, was very common. Usually in the old days, your family would take care of you and the kids would go out to work and take care of mom. But a young mother in those days became desperate. She could starve to death. I mean, there was no welfare, no food stamps in those days. So I don't know. It was a very tough existence. And how did I get back there? Anyway, one thing more I wanted to mention back to everyday business here is that, the biggest part of our business is making jewelry from scratch. And we love melting down old grandma's engagement ring and Uncle Charlie's gold chain and making it into something totally new that you can wear and keep it in the family. And it only costs half as much as it would if you bought it out of our cases. But anyway, if you want to do this for Christmas, this is getting very late. Right now, normally we're 6 to 8 weeks to get jewelry done in general, not having Christmas. But Christmas is coming up. This is halfway through September, and October's coming, and we need you early October, late September to come in if you want something by Christmas, because otherwise we're going to be booked. So think about what you want, what you have lying around, and for all you guys that can't figure out what to do for Christmas, come in and we'll give you some dozens of ideas and fun stuff. And that's about all I have. So I'm signing off. Bye-bye. I'm still here. I still see me. Okay. If I had a violin, I'd start playing.